What's up YouTube? Conzilla here. This is day 31 of my 31 Days of Horror, where I have been reviewing a different horror movie for every day of the month of October. Tonight's obviously the final night of 31 Days of Horror. It's Halloween, and so I saved the best for last. And tonight's film was George A. Romero's 1985 zombie classic, Day of the Dead. I'm joined once again tonight by my special guest, Callie. Alright, Day of the Dead. This is, of course, the follow-up to Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead. This sort of completes George Romero's original Dead trilogy. It was his last zombie movie that he would direct until Land of the Dead, which I think was around 2005. Yeah, this is a film I've seen a lot of times before. This is one of my absolute favorite horror movies, my favorite zombie movie. This is just one of those films I really love. I watch it pretty regularly. So yeah, this is a really awesome movie. I know Dawn of the Dead tends to be the favorite out of George Romero's zombie films, but for me, this one just kind of takes it to the next level. I really love the story to this. I love the music, the acting, everything about it. It's just super awesome. Definitely a really strong, 80s practical effects driven horror film, zombie film. So the basic story here, this takes place after Dawn of the Dead. Obviously society has been totally wiped out by this point. We open with some of our main characters. They're in a helicopter and they're sort of scouting the area looking for other survivors. This movie takes place in Florida. We get some really great opening shots that just establish how grim the situation has become. There's virtually no sign of human life. The dead wander the streets in massive hordes, and it's just chaos. Everything has collapsed. And so Sarah is the main character in this. She's a scientist, and they're going around by helicopter to see if they can find anybody else nearby, which they can't. Sarah is part of an operation that takes place at an underground base. Basically, they're trying to figure out a solution to the zombie outbreak, and they have some military guys there to help them. But they are losing people every day, or, well, not every day, but, pretty regularly. There's not very many people left. The situation is looking grim. They can't raise anybody on the radio. And so basically it's about the two factions here, the military and the scientists, and their inability to work together in an extreme situation. That's really sort of the basics of the story. And so we see that there's, tension growing between the groups and that everybody is dealing with tremendous stress. Sarah's boyfriend in the film is Miguel. And he is clearly losing it at the start of the picture. He's, as Sarah says, collapsing from stress. They're trying to collect more zombie specimens because they have a bunch of them corralled underground, and they have to bring them in to Dr. Frankenstein, as they call him, who's one of the main scientists who's trying to find a solution. And so they're using the zombies as, scientific specimens, which is obviously very dangerous, and the military guys are the ones doing this, and they're, dying off, and so they're growing resentful towards the scientists who aren't able to produce any results. Rhodes has taken over after the death of the Major, and he is definitely a bit of a tyrant throughout this film. He's really escalating the situation between the military and the scientists. He's sort of drawing his line in the sand there. The Dr. Frankenstein character is essentially trying to figure out the situation by domesticating the zombies. He thinks that their best bet is to try and control their behavior, which is kind of asinine, and that's what Sarah thinks throughout the film. So there's even disagreement among the scientists, and they have this big meeting trying to discuss things where it becomes clear that, Rhodes is not a team player here. He threatens to have Sarah shot because she wants to walk out of this meeting because it's just sort of infighting. So now it really raises the stakes of the situation. Um, the other characters here, we have Billy, Billy Boy, who is the radio operator, and him and his friend in the film, the Fly Boy, who flies the whirlybird. Both of them are basically just sort of checked out. They don't really believe in what's going on. There's a really great speech that's given about the futility of the whole situation, and gives you sort of the social critique of our sort of mode of living that you sort of expect from a George Romero zombie film. So, anyways, throughout the course of the film, the situation just continues to escalate, and and just the whole, the groups have the inability to work together, and the whole thing kind of just falls apart. The story does culminate with after Miguel's character is bitten. Sarah acts quick to chop his arm off to try and stop the spread of the zombie infection. But Rhodes, Steele, and Rickles think that, he should be killed because he's going to turn. And this is shortly after they kill Frankenstein, I believe, because he was basically taking the bodies of the military guys who died and operating on them and using them to feed to the zombies he's working with, which outrages Rhodes. And so they set Billy and Sarah loose into the mines, in the caves, to be devoured by zombies. And then there's sort of a standoff, and then Miguel is able to sneak out eventually to the elevator. He sabotages it so that it can only be operated from the outside, and then he lets the zombies all loose into the compound, and then sacrifices himself to the zombies, and then hits the button on the remote, lowers the elevator, and now all the zombies are running about the compound. And that's sort of our grand finale climax, where the military guys kind of get their comeuppance, and Rickles and Steele and Rhodes all meet super gory endings, really, really intense sequences, and the three heroes manage to escape by helicopter, and they make their way to an island which is obviously zombie-free, and happy ending. So yeah, really awesome, grim story to this. I love how just dark it pushes the whole story. Humanity's basically been completely overrun by the zombie scourge, and scientists in the military are just underground trying to survive, fighting with each other. No real solution, just a very grim, bleak situation. As far as the acting in this film, it's definitely one of those movies that is super overacted, but I really enjoy that about it. I think that the characters do really great performances in their roles. Rickles and Steele are both just like obnoxious, rough and tough type military guys who are totally dumb, and they're just totally obnoxious throughout this film. They give really over the top performances. Rhodes has like little man syndrome. He's trying to control everything, and the situation is just spiraling out, and he's just losing it. Everybody in this movie is just losing it, especially Miguel, because he's from the get-go. His character arc just is sort of to show us how bad things are at the start and how much worse they get, because he's just totally cracking. And the actor that portrays him does a really good job of making him kind of annoying in that regard, and that he's just like unable to cope with the situation. Laurie Cardile, who plays Sarah, does a good job here. She plays a pretty tough type female heroine, so she's definitely an enjoyable character. I like her character. And then the Dr. Frankenstein character, I really like him as well. He sort of seems like the voice of reason at the beginning of the film. He's the oldest and almost has a sort of fatherly way of, keeping the two bickering groups from going too out of control. But we begin to see how much he's unraveling too, because obviously his solution of trying to control the zombies, I mean, there's social critique in there, but then there's also just this guy is getting pretty nutters and he's losing it. We hear on a tape recorder that he's like talking to his mother and stuff like that, and then obviously, yeah, his regard for the human life around him, the military guys using their corpses as zombie bait, basically. You know, he's gone into some pretty dark depths there. So the Dr. Frankenstein character is really interesting. And yeah, I think all the performances in this are pretty memorable, and the characters are pretty memorable. They all have pretty well defined attributes to them that sort of form this story. And I really like the sort of claustrophobic setting, being trapped underground. And then just the different factions, you know, struggling to work together. It's sort of similar to Night of the Living Dead in that sense, but in a totally different setting and at a totally different point in the zombie apocalypse. So yeah, really excellent movie. Really great visually. There's a ton of really great visual things happening in this film. Even just right from the get-go, we have that opening scene where Sarah's in a room all alone and we see the calendar. It says it's October. It's the Day of the Dead, I think, or it's the day before at the start of this. And then just a whole bunch of zombie arms ripped through the walls all at once. That's a super powerful image. Starts the movie off really great. I love the opening sequence where we see the city in Florida that's just been totally overrun with zombies. You have that great jawless zombie walking around, super gruesome. The zombie effects in this look really good. We get some really next level sort of gore that happens here. I think when you compare this film to Dawn of the Dead, even though, I mean, Dawn of the Dead definitely had good effects, but this movie takes it to the next level. And so part of what I really enjoy about this movie is just how great the practical effects are. You know, you get the arm cutting off sequence. You get a zombie that gets its head cut off with a shovel. We get all sorts of just great, like at the end when the military guys are all sort of being overrun by the zombies. You know, the one guy who gets his head ripped off through the eye sockets. Rickles gets his eyeball ripped out, and his fingers bitten off. Like, just super gruesome, graphic death sequences. Really awesome zombie carnage. And then I think Rhodes' death is super impactful as well, when he just gets ripped right in half, and he's, you know, they're choke on him as they, you know, rip his guts out. So yeah, really, really fun, nasty zombie movie with great practical effects. Really enjoyable in that regard. The other thing that I really love about this music is John Harrison's score for it. It's super synthy and 80s, which is just my favorite in horror. I love that. He did a really great job with the score on this one. Super memorable. And in fact, I have the score to this. I listen to it all the time. It's really solid as a standalone listen. It works really well in the film. It creates a great grim apocalyptic atmosphere all throughout the film, and then we get all these nice sort of little tropical flourishes here and there to kind of reinforce the Florida setting that this movie takes place in. So definitely a top-notch score. I really love that. John Harrison did an amazing job with that as well. So yeah, that is Day of the Dead, and that brings 31 Days of Horror 2020 to completion. It's been a really great time watching all these movies. Definitely seen some really awesome movies this year. Yeah, a lot of first time viewings. I have some impressive films. Watched a few classics that I've seen dozens of times. So yeah, and I think Day of the Dead is, you know, like I said, is one of my favorite movies. So it was a solid choice to end out this season with. So yeah, if you've seen Day of the Dead before, definitely let me know your thoughts on the movie in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think about it. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and leave a like. And if you'd like to see more content like this in the future, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. Like 31 Days of Horror is complete now. And I've got a few things on the calendar that I've got planned out for my next couple videos. So you'll definitely want to check out what I've got in store. Alright guys, thanks for watching, and I will catch you next time.